And state law enforcement officials in Colorado plan to increase intelligence operations during the Democratic National Convention in Denver and run a fusion center where intelligence analysts will collect and analyze reports of suspicious activity. The Colorado Independent reports the military will also be sharing intelligence information and providing support through U.S. Northern Command, a unit created in 2002 for Homeland Defense. Civil rights advocates fear the Fusion Center could enable unwarranted spying on protesters exercising their First Amendment rights at the convention. We're joined now by three guests. Erin Rosa is a reporter for the Colorado Independent and online daily. She broke the story on the role of Northern Command at the convention. She joins us from Denver. Mike German is the National Security Policy Counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union. He was an FBI agent specializing in domestic counterterrorism from 1988 to 2004. He joins us from Washington, D.C., and Eileen Clancy is still with us, the founder of Eyewitness Video. Erin Rosa, let's begin with you. You're the reporter for the Colorado Independent who first broke many of these stories that, about the fusion centers that are being planned for Colorado for the upcoming DNC. Can you talk about what are the plans that the government's making and who exactly is going to be doing this surveillance?
Okay, well, to start off with, what we would probably need to do is define what a fusion center actually is. And basically, they're centers meant to facilitate communications between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to share information about quote-unquote suspicious activities, which can include taking pictures or taking notes. The definition is very broad when it's defined by them. And essentially what the Colorado Independent has found out is that this fusion center, which is located in Colorado and the Denver metro area, they're going to be increasing intelligence operations during the convention. And they will be sharing information with the U.S. Secret Service, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Northern Command, which is actually stationed about approximately 70 miles from Denver.
And Erin Rosa, how is U.S. Northern Command involved?
Well, we have confirmed that U.S. Northern Command has been asked by the Secret Service to help out with convention security, which is bringing in a military entity into the convention security process. They will be providing materials such as security dogs to the U.S. Secret Service. They haven't elaborated on everything they're going to be assisting with. They will also be sharing information with the Fusion Center as they have done so in the past, intermittently, when it's warranted.
Turn to Mike German, National Security Policy Counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union. Mike German, you did a report, you co-authored a report in November 2007 about fusion centers, and you just put up an update to it earlier in the week. Can you talk about your concerns?
Sure. Our report in November was basically hoping to be a warning signal that we saw some problems with these centers, these fusion centers that were being created all over the country. And really what they are is a collaborative effort between not just state, local, and federal law enforcement, but also, as in Colorado, involving the military, private sector companies, and other non-law enforcement government agencies. So it really is breaking down all the arm's length relationships and putting all these people together in an environment where it's unclear who is actually in charge and whose rules apply to the information that's being collected and shared and distributed through these fusion centers. And particularly where the military and private entities were involved, it seemed that it was inappropriate to incorporate them into what is essentially a law enforcement function. And in fact, there are some pretty long-standing laws that are supposed to prevent that sort of military intervention in law enforcement activities. So the November report was supposed to just, put up a warning to let people out in the communities around the country know about it, but also to let state legislators and members of Congress know that there are some problems with this lack of or ambiguity over who's in control. Because we were afraid that would lead to problems. And of course, the excessive secrecy that was surrounding these centers, it was hard to know exactly what they were doing and under whose authority they were operating. in the 6 months since, there have been so many news stories that have come out showing abuses that center around or are associated with these centers that we thought we better update the report to let people know that this isn't just a hypothetical concern, that there are actually misconduct going on now that needs to be addressed.
I wanted to ask you to lay out how the fusion centers are a development from previous intelligence gathering mechanisms since 9/11. You had the TIPS program, you had the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Where do fusion centers fit in?
Well, it's interesting. Fusion centers sort of started organically around the country. It seemed like state and local law enforcement were frustrated with the Joint Terrorism Task Force's ability to break down the classification rules and actually share information with them. So they started creating their own networks to share state police information. And once the federal government saw those and saw them working, they started pouring in resources and sort of changing the nature of them to really encourage them to state and local law enforcement authorities and these other entities in the fusion centers to become intelligence collectors for the intelligence community, the federal intelligence community. And as you said, those earlier programs, TIPS and Matrix and those kind of programs, were centralized within the federal government. So it was easy for the civil liberties community and the privacy community to focus their efforts and get those things stopped. This is much more difficult because the federal government is saying, no, these aren't federal entities, they're state entities. So, you know, instead of one focal point, there have to be 50. And each one is actually different because they did grow up organically. And not all of them are engaged in the same sorts of behavior, so it's very difficult to generalize about what's going on. So it's really incumbent upon, you know, every local community to start asking questions of their local police departments and their local government officials to find out exactly what's happening in their neighborhood. And, you know, as your earlier stories today showed, where people think that nobody's watching, they'll do some really, you know, terrible things that aren't justified under any legal system. And in these centers, it appears that nobody's watching. And there's one story that we highlight in our report that happened in Los Angeles, where after 9/11, the very first fusion center, the Los Angeles County Terrorism Early Warning Center, the co-founder of that center contacted the U.S. Northern Command after 9/11 and started a conspiracy to steal military intelligence records that later involved at least 7 law enforcement officers and military reservists in this theft scheme, stealing military surveillance records apparently pertaining to Southern California mosques. And, you know, it's unclear why the military has those records in the first place, but the fact that this group could operate for 5 years stealing these highly classified records sort of is the, you know, the perfect storm of the issues that we brought up in our earlier report, that this is a real problem that needs to be addressed, because it wasn't any internal controls that discovered this theft ring. It was actually discovered by accident when the Marine Corps down at Camp Pendleton was searching for stolen Iraq war booty and searched a storage locker here in Manassas, Virginia, and found not just the stolen Iraq war trophies, but also boxes of highly classified records, and that's how this ring was stopped after 5 years.
Well, we have to break. We'll continue this discussion when we come back. Mike German is the National Security Policy Counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union. We're also speaking with Aaron Rosa, the reporter for the Colorado Independent, and Eileen Clancy, the founder of Eyewitness Video. Stay with us.